Good morning. Les Raymond here with the Mindful Movement. Thank you for joining me today for another morning practice. We're going to open up the hips a little bit today. Hips are kind of important. In general, a lot of our movement comes from these two like ball and socket joints. And with that is an opportunity to bring tension and dysfunction and all kinds of junk. I think we could even store like emotional stuff in some of these areas. And based on how we spend a lot of our time, primarily like when we're seated for long periods of time, these areas just get these non-optimal tissue relationship, and they require nourishment. So today's practice will be about like nourishing, providing some care for the hips. It's going to be mostly really easy and gentle, a little bit of light movement, a little bit of stretching. I might throw in maybe one intermediate stretch, but what I'm going to probably use is a block at some point and a cushion of some sort. The cushion is going to be for when you're in a kneeling or half kneeling position to support the knee. Most days I don't need that. I might not today, but I'm going to have one just to show you how to use one. So if you want to take a moment and maybe grab, now oftentimes you could, if you're using a mat, you could kind of double up the mat or triple up the mat if you need a little more support, or just a little like small throw pillow from a sofa or something could be useful. I have I guess one that's made for like the exercise world that's pretty dense foam. These are great to have, but you don't need one. You could roll up a blanket, whatever. So I like to have that handy for today. And then a yoga block. We're going to start with just some gentle breathing with our hips in an open position. So we'll do this from the ground, laying on our belly. We've done this before. If you've been following me, you're just going to lay on your belly and then take one knee and pull it up to your side, which just creates a little openness in that hip. And we'll do a little easy breathing from this position. You could just rest one hand on the other hand and rest your cheek or your temple on the hand. What's nice about this position is the ground, the weight of your body on the ground allows you to hold your rib cage fairly still, and it makes it easier to direct your breath in a southern direction there. So let's take advantage of that. So you're going to have your mouth closed and breathe in through your nose and see if you could expand your belly into the ground to the point where the low back starts to expand. And as you're doing this, allow for some attention on that hip. Just seeing if you could relax that right hip. Almost like we're just setting the tone for the practice, creating a little space in that hip. Just slow, deliberate breathing. Okay, now from this position, you're going to take your left leg and just bend that knee and make some very small side-to-side movements with your foot there, just pivoting on the knee there. So just getting a little bit of rotation in that left hip as the right hip is open. It might feel like you're not going very far. That's okay. It's not a huge movement here. Just to get that ball to turn in the socket a little bit. Couple more of these. And then let's go through that on the other side. So the right leg straightened down, the left knee comes up. And check in with your breathing. And then taking the right knee and bending it. And start to swish that foot side to side. Swish it. Swish is a good word. Couple more. All right. And then we're going to roll over on our back. And if you can, have the block handy. Ooh, the moon's right above me. That's cool. All right. So we're going to start off by bringing the right knee into the chest a little bit and just grabbing around the shin, interlocking your fingers. If for some reason you can't reach there, you could also grab behind the thigh. And just give a little gentle pull, keeping the left leg straight. See if you could make sure the neck and the head is very relaxed on the ground here. Taking a breath with the knee pulled in. And then releasing just a little bit. And then you could release your left hand as you pull the right knee towards the right armpit a little bit. Drawing your right elbow towards the ground. Taking a breath here. Oh, I'm getting dripped on by the tree above me. All right, and then releasing, putting the knee in the left hand, grabbing the shin. So you can keep the right shoulder anchored on the ground there, and then just drawing the right knee towards the left armpit a little bit, reaching your left elbow to the ground, creating a little pressure there, taking a breath there. And then we're going to go through that on the other side. So straightening the right leg, grabbing the left. If you can, make sure that the chin is not like lifting up. So see if you could maintain kind of the relationship your spine has all the way up the head with the ground as you pull the knee up. One side is probably going to feel different than the other side. And then releasing, taking the left knee with the left hand over to the left armpit, the left elbow coming to the ground. Taking a breath there. And then the other side, releasing, bringing the left shoulder to the ground, taking the left knee with the right hand and pulling it up towards the right armpit. A little restriction this morning. And then releasing, and then grabbing the block and open up the front of the hip a little bit. We're going to place the block under the hip, so like under your sacrum. And then grabbing the right knee in that towards the chest again, let the left leg just slide forward and see if you could relax that left leg a little bit. Just a really subtle way to open up the front of that left hip. And a couple breaths here. And then going through that on the other side, bringing the left knee up, letting the right leg slide out. And one more breath here. All right. And then bringing the block to the side. And with your feet bent here, this is a really subtle one that can be surprisingly juicy. What you're going to do is try to grab your left foot with your right hand, but you're going to reach under your right leg to do it. So reaching under the right leg to grab the top of the left foot, and then let the right foot come back down if it's come up. And then you're going to place your left foot on the ground so the left heel is basically touching your right butt cheek. And then let the left knee get heavy, fall towards the ground. A little extra feature, one of my habits here, if you're familiar with any of the meridians of the body, you have your left foot in your right hand. You could take your right thumb and hit kidney 1 if you're familiar with where that is. Maybe we'll do a video on some of these self-acupressure points one day. Or you could take your index finger and put it on liver 3. Very convenient for those two spots. Sometimes I'll do them both at the same time. Maybe when I get to the other side, you'll be able to see a little bit of that, what that looks like. So just opening up the front of that left side a little bit. Also, I like to take the left thumb and work some of these areas that I feel being tugged on in the front of the left hip. So you could do a little self-massage here. Sometimes I could actually even feel tension around the colon here, above the inside of the hip there. It gets kind of pulled taut, and I could take my thumb and nourish that a little bit. All right, let's go through that on the other side. So bending both knees, reaching the left hand under the left leg, grabbing the top of the right foot, placing the right heel on the ground so it's just touching your left butt cheek there, and then letting the right knee fall to the ground. And if your knee doesn't reach the ground, then no worries there. Just, let your leg get heavy. And then again, if you want to play with some points, so if you're familiar with kidney 1, your thumb is in a great position to get some contact there, and your index finger can be on this. I'm pretty sure it's liver 3. Maybe I'm confusing that with large intestine. I think it's liver 3 here. Could be large intestine. I could be off on that. I am not a acupressurist, acupuncturist, or whatever. I just know that I like pushing on those points. It does something. Just letting that right hip open, and then taking your right thumb, if you're up for it, and seeing anything that might enjoy a little massage with that right thumb on the front of that right hip. And then Letting your feet come back to center with your knees bent, creating a little space there in the front of the left hip. Let's make use of that space and extend our hips a little bit here. So think of your feet really connecting with the ground here. Start to push the ground down, see if you can get all the toes involved. And then allow the hips to rise up. Maybe sense like a sense of openness in the front of the hip, like the knee and the shoulder can get very far away from each other. You've removed some blockages potentially in the front of the hip. And then come on down. Take a breath. Then we're going to come right back up there and move just a little bit. So coming back up into that bridge. And while up in that bridge, just shifting your hips from side to side a little bit. And see if you can maintain the height of your hips. The tendency is for them to start to sag here. See if you could fight the good fight here and just work that hip extension as you're getting a really subtle rotation in the hip joint there. And then letting your hips come down. And then letting your knees go side to side a little bit here. So this is a much easier version. And it's easy to let your hip really pop off the ground here and start to twist the back. Let's think of the pelvis being a little more anchored to the ground. It might restrict the range of motion of how far your knees go, that's fine. But see if you could get a sense of what it's like for that ball to just turn in that socket. And then we'll get a little stretch here with that in mind. So you're going to take your right ankle, reach your right leg over your left leg, and just kind of hook with your right ankle, the outside of that left knee, and allow the weight of your right leg just to drag that left leg down. But see if you could keep a sense of connection with the ground with this left pelvis. So don't let it just pop up. There's nothing wrong with that move. That's also a real juicy, feel-good stretch, but it's a little higher up. I just want to focus on the hip here a little bit. So think of the left hip as just being anchored to the ground behind you as you're pulling the left knee away from that hip. And then let's go through that on the other side. So the left leg goes over the right, hook the side of the knee, let the left leg drag the right knee down, but keeping a sense of connection with the right hip on the ground. So you really just want to go to where you start to feel really gentle stretch, and then just work on the breath, adding a little ease to the position. And let's come out of there. And however you'd like, let's find ourselves in a quadruped position. And we will be using a cushion soon. So if you could have that handy. We're going to start off just from kind of standard quadruped position and just rocking forward and backward, trying to maintain posture. If you can, keep the arms straight and the head up. And when your head is up, think of it not just like your neck lifting your head, but just your whole body is lifting the head. So it starts with the hands really pushing through the ground and the entire spine doing its part to hold the head in space. And now what we're going to do is just start to open the knees a little bit wider. And continue with the rocking. All right, now this next one can feel a little strange, and you can use a block for this one, putting it between your thighs. And then we're going to go into internal rotation of the hip. So you're going to, with your knees kind of fixed in space, turn your feet out so that they're wider than your knees. See if you could keep your heel pointed fairly north here. And this might feel much more restricted as you start to rock from this position. And this could feel very strange. Internal rotation, I'd say, often a neglected direction that we work. And see if you could just create a little bit of ease with this movement. Maybe starting to travel a little bit further in the rock. All right. And now, putting that aside, if you have a cushion or you need something for your knee, you could put your right knee on your cushion. You might not need this. I might not need this, but I'll use it today anyway. All right. So take a moment and just get a sense of what it's like to be tall here, as if you're standing on your right leg. So see if you can get your hips above the knee, the shoulders above the hips, your head above your shoulders. Most folks, me included, have some kind of loss of posture where our head is a little forward. But you know, that's why we practice. And then what we're going to do is maintain this sense of tallness as you just shift your hips forward and then come back. Now, as you're doing this, if you can, try to avoid a big rolling of the pelvis like this. So see if we could keep a relationship between our front lower ribs and the front of our pelvis. And that's going to keep a little honesty in our stretch. So that might be experienced as like a posterior tilt of the pelvis. But think of this relationship here between the bottom of the front ribs and the top of the front pelvis to being fairly steady. All right, now you're just going to lift that knee and turn it about 90 degrees there, and then go back to facing that front leg. So you're a little twisted here. And continue a few more rocks as if you're just following that knee right over the foot and ankle. And you know, keep this easy. This could be intense for some folks, so no need to be a hero here. Just listen to the body and see what's there for you to explore. You don't have to really push it hard. One more here. And then let's go through that on the other side. So first, just getting nice and tall. Get a sense of what it's like to have your hips over your knee, your shoulders over your hips, head over your shoulders. And then start to shift forward and back. And reconnecting with that idea, this relationship here. And what that does is it just allows us to direct the hip opening, the stretch, a little bit more into the hip, and not letting it kind of, I don't know, bleed into just extending the low back. Just gently pulling on the rubber band as you shift forward. All right. And then lifting that leg and repositioning. So it's at about a 90 degree from your front leg. Keep your torso with the front leg if you can, and start to shift forward. Sometimes you could use that like left hand as an anchor to keep that position and getting it on the outside of the right knee or thigh. Or you could take your right hand and push a little bit just to get some leverage. If it feels like, I feel pretty restricted on this side, as if my body wants to rip and turn to the left, and I want to try to maintain this position here. A couple more of these. All right. And now we're going to go standing. And to start off, we're going to wind up getting into a wide leg position, but we'll just take a moment in like a medium wide position first. And just going to roll the hips around. So think of the head not moving really far here. It's really the hips are doing the moving. And just pick a direction and making little circles, and think of just working that ball around in the socket. This ideally not going to be very strenuous, just moving, just like loosening up. And then the other direction. And then we're going to get wider here. You don't have to go like as wide as you can, but wide enough that you're like, okay, this is wide. I'm in a wide leg stance here. Find your hip here, keeping your posture nice and control, and maybe your eyes forward. Just start to hinge back at that hip and then come on up. So that we're just doing some wide leg hinges. You could put your hands on your low back. You could put it right in your hip crease there and feel that movement right in the joint. And then with the hip back, just go a little bit farther back. See if you can reach the floor there. And we're just going to walk our hands over towards one foot and then over towards the other. Nice and easy. And one more here. And then with your head up, you can put your hands back onto the hips or on the low back. And come on back up. And then we're going to turn the feet out a little bit. And keeping the torso nice and tall, just kind of sink down. From this position, we're just going to move a little bit side to side. Maybe straightening one leg, straightening the other leg. Pushing the ground away. Building connection with the ground. Okay, and then your feet straight ahead. We're going to start to sink into one side here. Now, the next moment or two, next minute or two, we're going to have a little bit higher intensity of the amount of effort. So if it doesn't feel like it's good for you, you could pick anything we've already done and do that, or whatever you do want to do. And if you want to push yourself, then just follow along. So we're going to start to sink into each side, getting a little lower. And then when you're ready, if you can, this might be as far as you go, you could come all the way down. Now, if you need your hands on the ground, that's fine. Find whatever support you need. If this heel comes up and that's where you're at, that's okay. Maybe explore some movement from this position, turning towards the straight leg. A little Cossack stretch here. And then you could use your hands to kind of transfer over to the other side. sinking in and moving around. Again, if your heel is up, that's fine. If it's down, terrific. I like to block that knee. So my right knee is kind of blocked with my right arm, just to open up that right hip a little bit. And then we'll switch to the other side one more time. If you want to try, you can do this without the help of your hands. Now watch this, we're going to do a little variation here. We're going to plant the right hand, so we're down on the left side. We're going to plant the right hand and turn our torso to the left, turning our left foot, being strong on the right arm, pushing the ground down, keeping the right leg straight as we turn into this reverse Cossack stretch. Getting the outside of that right hip. A lot of work on the wrist here for some of you. So just, do what's right for you. Coming back to the Cossack. We're going to go through that on the other side. So switch over to the other side. So you're down in the right here. Left hand on the ground. We're going to turn to the right, keeping the left leg straight, being super strong with that left arm, keeping the left shoulder out of the ear, pushing through the ground, getting a stretch all along here, the outside of that left, and the left QL a little bit there. Good stuff. And then coming back. All right. And then straightening the right leg so you're back in your wide leg stance. Coming back up. Wiggle your feet together however feels right. And we're going to finish off with just a little shaking the meat off the bone. So take your hands. You're going to shift your weight to the right leg. Grab real gentle around the left thigh and just